It doesn't often occur that someone we've come to know through family meals, tearful heart-to-hearts, and dramatic sister-wives moments will find themselves in the thick of a courtroom battle overnight. And yet here we are today. Christine Woolley's daughter, Isabel, yes, the same Isabel Brown we first met, has battled in the past. We saw her battle through life-altering scoliosis surgery, grinding out pain with grit that impressed viewers from coast to coast. But this time, she's not battling for her health, family dynamics, or television cameras. This time, she's battling to clear her good name in a Utah courtroom. The news came as a gut blow to the fans. Why was this one man who was always so humble, so gracious, so tunnel-visioned engaging in a battle in a courtroom? It began with a car accident a couple of years ago, a wreck that, for all the rest, could have been a bad day on the highway. For Isabel, it has been a long, annoying court case now playing out in the public sphere. And now this gets complicated. Two vastly different narratives are emerging about precisely what did occur that day. That's where the case gets complicated and personal for fans. They've been cheering for Isabel all along, rescuing her in hard times, and now are being given a scenario that doesn't play by Isabel's rules they believed they knew. Timing alone is enough to raise suspicions. Why now, after the years that have passed since the accident occurred? Some believe it has to do with justice and responsibility. Others are attempting to inquire if there is a hidden agenda behind it all. Before we jump to conclusions, however, we need to return to what exactly Isabel is outside of these headlines. To longtime sister wives enthusiasts, Isabel was simply a pleasant face among the large Brown clan. She's Christina's daughter, the one we really came to know outside the peripheries of loud family gatherings. Shy and reserved, yet just as close to her mom, Isabel appeared to ride out her unconventional childhood with some sort of serene maturity that was uplifting. Her fight against scoliosis turned into one of the most iconic paths in the series' history. We witnessed the doctor appointments, the pain, the operation, and most importantly, the inner strength it took to allow the world to see her at rock bottom. The fans weren't pitying her, they were supporting her. Isabel was a poster child for stoic resilience, a woman who fought her demons stronger than years. Which is why this courtroom soap opera has been so jarring. On TV, she was never figured as careless or irresponsible. Now, court papers paint her as a driver in a chain reaction crash that injured another person. It's an uncomfortable contrast and leaves viewers wondering, how do these two Isabels tie in? Bear with me though, because as we go deeper into this case, it becomes clearer and clearer that pieces of a puzzle tell a story not quite so simple. It's a charge that carries the taste of trauma between two pretty different realms, the gritty, emotion-bare life that we witnessed on Sister Wives, and the cold, analytical language of a courtroom. It brings one to question, is the Isabel that we've all grown up with and loved as she climbed the ranks year after year the same little girl that is being recounted in these court proceedings? Is there some whole other part of this tale that we never even knew existed? It was all on a rush-hour Utah road, filled with vehicles, the stop-and-go traffic type where each motorist creeps along, brake lights flashing out into the distance. That was the setting where they say Isabel made her fatal error, driving too quickly for conditions and tailgating the car in front of her. The plaintiff's version is stark chronology. Traffic had just stopped. Isabel, allegedly, didn't have time to brake. Her car collided with the car in front of her, which collided with another, and that second car crashed into the car of the plaintiff. That was the moment that did it all, not just wrecking a car, but a life, in their telling. This is not a suit for the repair of dents or recoupment of the expense of one ER visit. This plaintiff is asserting damages for subsequent bodily injury, emotional distress, loss of enjoyment of ordinary life, and suffering incurred. They're seeking damages to cover medical expenses, lost income, and the type of pain and suffering that lingers well beyond the date of the accident. But here is where things get interesting, and where a whole big mess of the fans have begun raising their eyebrows. Because for as serious an accusation as this, the case reports are too conveniently brief. No date of accident listed. No police report reported. No ticket numbers provided. No photos of the accident site. No medical reports indicating the injuries reported. Even the very nature of those injuries themselves into question. That absence of hard evidence is unusual in lawsuits of this kind. Normally, you'd expect a clear timeline, detailed witness statements, proof of expenses, and official accident reports to back up the claims. Instead, what we're left with is mostly the plaintiff's narrative, without the supporting material that typically strengthens a case. Now, to be clear, Isabel's side is not making the argument that no accident did occur. Both sides are in accord on the fact that there was an accident that day. The question at hand here is whether or not Isabel's behavior did actually produce the plaintiff's injuries, and whether damages asserted are reasonably proportionate to what did happen. Today, there seems to be a feeling of disconnect between how this case is being handled in tawdry ways and evidence that is being presented in its defense. And in court, they're not minor details. They're what win or lose the case. Which brings us to the piece de resistance for all those holding their breath. Isabel's reply to the suit. When it was her turn to reply in court, Isabel didn't try to sidestep each point. She admitted some facts categorically. Yes, she rear-ended the car in front of her. Yes, she was on the same highway at the same hour as the plaintiff. Yes, she was a licensed operator and had attended driver's school. Those were things not worth to deny. But then that is where her accommodation of the plaintiff's version collapses. After that point, Isabel's legal position is in absolute denial. She refutes the allegation that she was the only one responsible for causing the accident. Her explanation is for a more serious accident, multiple vehicles in multiple impact collisions, with possibly more than one party at fault. It's fault allocation in the legal sense, and it does count. If the jury believes there was more than one individual at fault, each driver can be allocated a percentage of the fault, so Isabel's damages would be greatly reduced. Her argument relies as well in significant part on Utah's no-fault automobile insurance statutes. Medical expenses up to $3,000 are covered by each driver's own policy without fault under Utah law. The coverage is to cover immediate expenses such as hospitalization charges and partial lost wages. It does not indemnify for pain and suffering except under very particular standards of law, standards that demand evidence of actual substantial, lasting injury, such as permanent disability or disfigurement. And the surprise in the strategy, Isabel's lawyers are asserting that the plaintiff complaint doesn't provide the very facts to breach those hurdles. No hospital reports of injuries. No reports of medical treatment. There is no proof of treatment expenses beyond that $3,000 limit. Unless the plaintiff can present such proof, the case can be limited, even thrown out, without ever going to a jury. Her lawyers also provide the second rationale. If the plaintiff has already collected insurance benefits on the accident, those must be subtracted from whatever award is granted in court. That is to say, even if the plaintiff wins, the final payout can be far less than anticipated. It's a defense tactic. Accept what cannot be accepted, fight what cannot be fought, and deflect the accident as a multi-car accident where the fault cannot lie directly on her shoulders. Outside the courtroom, public opinion is split down the middle. Scroll through fan forums or social media threads and you'll see it. Heated debates, passionate defenses, and plenty of suspicion. On one side are loyal Sister Wives fans who've watched Isabel grow up on screen, remembering her as thoughtful, careful, and anything but reckless. To them, this lawsuit feels less like justice and more like targeting someone with a recognizable name. But on the other hand, that's where the interesting part of the story comes in. To her viewers, the lack of specificity in the complaint filed by the plaintiff is a giant red flag, and that this lawsuit is coming out years after the crash just makes them all the more suspicious. There are some, however, who are only too quick to remind that being a TV favorite does not necessarily keep one from making mistakes in one's life. They believe that if Isabel collided with another car, then she is legally liable for it no matter what type of person she was. For them, the court, and not public perception, is the right forum to determine what really happened, where reason prevails over emotion. The timing, too, is quickly becoming one of the most controversial aspects of this case. Why sue 2 years later? Others consider whether the plaintiff has been receiving long-term medical treatment and simply now decided to sue. Others are apt to presume an organized action, maybe because of the celebrity status of the family being reality TV stars or presumed access to more resources. Where a defendant is one of the cast of a very much publicized reality TV program, between myth and fact confusion simply cannot be avoided. This is where the legal process catches up with the popular court. Fans create their own nostalgia of watching Isabel survive scoliosis surgery, of watching her and Christine together, of watching her age on television. Critics peel off all that and give the suit as plain cause and effect on the highway. Supporters look at her as a target. Skeptics look at her as a driver who could have made an expensive error. Until there is more evidence, both sides will retain their version of the truth. Here, Isabel's judicial process can diverge into various directions. The case can go to a complete jury trial, where witnesses are called to give evidence is cross-examined, and 12 plain folks render the verdict. That path is tough, long, and highly publicized, not only for Isabel, but also her friends and loved ones. Private settlement is a second option, where the two sides agree to a settlement without ever setting foot in a courtroom. It is quicker, less conspicuous, and less expensive, but leaves the public guessing what actually transpired. And to top it off is the threat that the case might be dismissed entirely if the plaintiff cannot meet Utah's strict no-fault injury insurance requirements. Without proof of compelling damage, the case may never even go to hearing. For everyone reading along with Isabel's story, it is impossible not to remember the war she's already waged. Years back, Shed fought the world and a huge surgery with unwavering resolve. Now she's waging a different type of war, not one waged in a hospital bed, but in a courtroom, in the light of media scrutiny once again. The same stubbornness can prove her greatest asset, not just to fight her case, but to ride out the emotional sting of the front pages. Lastly, the judge and jury will weigh and sift the evidence, and the defenders will glance from the perspective of years of familiarity and sentiment. There will be people who will be strongly in her defense, believing she's been victimized unfairly. Others will worry about accountability, since law ought to be as binding on all people, whether popular or unpopular. And perhaps that's the reason this case has hit so hard, because it's not just an auto collision. It's a perception case, it's a justice case, and it's a celebrity and how it influences perception of justice. So now I'm going to pose the question to you, was Isabel in the wrong place at the wrong time, or is there a valid reason on the plaintiff's part? Leave your comments below, I read them all. And if you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to Beyond Sister Wives so you won't miss an update as this saga runs on. This story's far from over.